Okay, so we'll get into this, amazing movie because there's so much to talk about there. But first, I think just to give everyone inspiration, I know, everybody here is so interested in movies and film and want to know how did you get here? What got you inspired, and how did you get to these amazing careers? So, do you want to go ahead and start?
I'll start. Yes. Can you hear me? Is that good? Right on. It was a infomercial. That's what got me here. I was going to Minnesota State University. I was on a football scholarship, and I had to go to class that was the requirement to play football for my scholarship. So I went to classes for 5 years, and nothing really inspired me to, really pursue something in the future. And I get a phone call from my father, and he says, you're about to graduate, what are you going to do? Are you going to go get your master's? Are you going to, send out some resumes? And I said, I don't know. So that day, I swear it was that day, I was walking by the television, and this thing says, learn how to be a Hollywood stuntman. I was like, that's it. That is it. And I still remember the number that I was supposed to call. It was 1-800-32, that was my football number, Stunt. So I went home that weekend, and my dad sits me down and says, what do you think? And I said, I'm going to be a stuntman. And he goes, well, you've done it all your life. You might as well get paid for it. So my mom, who had some tears in her eyes, and she's not a crier at all, I go, what's the matter? And she goes, I couldn't be happier for you. So it was something that I had done my whole life, didn't know it. And so that, how do you pursue something that you're in Minnesota, right? You're in Minnesota. You don't know anything about it. So you go to LA, do you go to New York? What do you do? So my dad had just come back from a business trip, and he said, hey, there's these live stunt shows down in Orlando. I just saw one. It's called the Indiana Jones Stunt Show. And I was like, I could do that. So I graduated about a month later. I packed up my Dodge Colt, one speaker, no AC. I showed up here in Florida. I go to casting down at Disney. I walk up, suit and tie. Yeah, I want to be Indiana Jones. She's like, yeah, that's an audition process. And I go, all right, I'll audition. She goes, we have that twice a year, and you're about a week too late. I said, what can I do to have a job on that stage? She looks at her chart. She says, well, there's wardrobe. I said, I'll take it. She goes, you don't want that. She goes, you have to pull dirty clothes out of the laundry basket. You have to put them in the wash. You have to hang them. You have to hand them out. She goes, you don't want to do that. And I go, yeah, I do, because I want to be on that stage. And she says, I tell you what, you go home tomorrow, you come back, and if you still want it, you can have it. So I said, all right. I was the first guy to show up the next day. She said, it only pays $5. I said, I don't care. I want to be on that stage. I want to be a part of this. So she says, okay, you're hired. So every day I worked there, I watched that show. I befriended the stunt guys there. I asked them to show me how things worked, and we did. We went in people's backyards. We went on stage. We, snuck in some high falls and some fights and the whip and the whole ordeal. And from that point, 6 months went by, and I went to the audition, and I got hired. And that is something that I can't express enough. If that's what you want, then just indulge yourself in that whole ordeal. And so that's how I got into the business.
Awesome.
I'm not nearly exciting as that. I always wanted to be a makeup artist. That was all I ever wanted to do, and that's what I decided I was going to do. And I grew up in rural Australia, where there's probably maybe 3,000 people in my town. And they were all like, well, what are you going to do? And I'd go, I'm going to be a makeup artist. And they'd be like, oh, that's nice. And, they would be like, well, why don't you marry a farmer? And I was like, not really. My mum was like, why don't you be a nurse? And I was like, I don't think that's really me. So my dad takes me out to a farm. I get out and I open the gate, and he says to me, there's 5 brothers. I don't care which one you like, just like one. And he was serious. And I was kind of like, oh, this is going very badly for me. And then I went and I sat my nursing exam and I got accepted into nursing, and I was like, oh, wow. And I came out of the exam and I thought, I don't want to do that. So I signed up for makeup school the same afternoon. And I went to makeup school, and I did a lot of free movies for students at the local film school there, which was called Swinburne Institute at the time. I think it's called Swinburne University now. And they were the only film school in town, so I did a lot of free movies for them. And then I got hired in a TV station, and I started in TV news. And I went from TV news to doing a variety show, and then eventually I went freelance and I started doing special effects makeup and prosthetics and all that sort of thing. And then I ended up moving to America. And when I moved here, I ended up in Orlando, and I ended up at Universal Studios, was my first job. And then from there, someone called me and said, hey, we're doing this movie down in the Caribbean, do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. What's it called? She went, Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. So that was my first movie here. And then I did 1 and 2 and 3 and so on and so on. And I just seem to be good enough at it that people keep hiring me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
For me, I started out in high school doing television productions, so doing the broadcast thing in the classroom capacity in high school. Then I went to a college, didn't have anything that I really wanted to do. I think I explored 5 different majors while I was there for 2 years, and decided to go back to kind of that entertainment once again, and decided to come down to Full Sail. Went to Full Sail, and then graduated and got an internship in Orlando with a company called Lightship Entertainment, and had a great mentor over there by the name of Robin Cohen, who also is a member of WIFT and is still very prevalent in the industry around town. And I worked there for 5 months for free, and just kind of kept on doing it. We were doing Discovery Channel shows. I think the first 2 weeks, they're like, one of the producers wasn't able to go onto one of the shows, and so they had an open room on a cruise ship, so they wanted to know if I wanted to go on a cruise with Disney for a couple days. I said, I have my passport and I'm ready to go, so where's the boat? Let's leave. And then we did a bunch of Discovery Channel shows with them, and I finally came to a point where it was like, all right, enough is enough working for free. It's been 5 months, and they were very kind and very supportive, and there was another reality show just starting out that you've never probably heard of called House of Dreams, and that aired on A&E, and I went over and did that show, and I was a contestant coordinator on that show, and just kind of started that way, because it was kind of ironic because I had a double booking for my very first show. I could have either been a production coordinator with a better title over on Pepsi's Play for a Billion, or at the same time, that was going to be for 2 weeks, or work on this reality show for less money but a longer run. And it ended up working out for the best just because it was local crews, and that's what really introduced me to kind of the Orlando market, and it started my networking. And from there, just started getting commercial work, started getting feature work, and just kind of, I guess, made my way through life at that point in time.
Very good.
So, I think that brings up a really good point, which is, to plug into the community where you are. There is this idea of thinking that you have to go to LA or be there, but I think the fact that what you're saying is by connecting to this Orlando, all the different Orlando crews, you're able to get more and more and more work. So wherever you are, to do that. So now moving on to the production of Lone Ranger. Can you guys each talk about what was your best day on set and what was your most difficult day on set, and why?
I can start. Yeah. All right. My best day, my favorite day was the first day, and that was the day that I was put into the Lone Ranger, or the Tonto costume. And it was actually the first day that the whole crew had seen that character. And just to see how the crew were amazed by what they were seeing, because Tonto's not a new character, but the costume was, and the look, and the crow, and the whole ordeal. So it was such a great vibe on set. And this was the first time I met Jerry Bruckheimer, you know, he came over and introduced himself, and we had a nice conversation. And then it was the first time I met Gore, the director, and his vision of what he wanted out of that character. And then, of course, the first time I met Johnny. So that was, it was a pretty amazing day and unforgettable, and definitely my favorite day of the whole ordeal. Oh, my worst. My worst. What was my most difficult? I think the most difficult was the jump from train to train. So that was a. But the most difficult day I had was not a stunt day. It was the day they asked me to flip the pocket watch into my hand. So they brought in this yo-yo expert. And remember? Yes. So he comes in and he can yo-yo like he was cool. He could yo-yo 10 yo-yos. He was national champion. He was, you know, this whole ordeal. So they brought him in and he had to do this trick where he pulls it out of the pocket, he flings it around, it opens, he looks at it, and then he shuts it. So they filmed him. He goes home. And, yeah, very simple for this guy, you know. So he works a week on it and finally dials it in. They shoot it and they're happy and then off he goes. Well, they get it into the editing room, and they don't like his hands. So his hands didn't match Johnny's hands, because it's supposed to be Johnny doing it. So they come up to me one day, and they go, hey, we're going to have you do the watch thing. And I go, okay. So this is how you have to do it. So I was like, all right. So all day I'm just practicing. So I finally dial it in. I go, all right, guys, I'm ready to do this. And they go, now you have to do it on the horse. And I go, what? There was two of us on this movie that doubled Johnny, and one of them was the horse guy, okay? I wasn't the horse guy. So now I'm on this horse, trying to pull this thing out, flip it around. The camera's right here. Can you move your hand like this, you know? So that was probably the most difficult day I had on there. It wasn't even a stunt, so.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I think the most interesting day for us as a makeup department was the first day we shot in Red Saloon in the interior of the whorehouse. And it was like, I think we started really ridiculously early in the background with the background artists, and we were in the trailer with the main artists. And by the time we got them all through and everybody ready and we actually hit the set, it was like, yeah, now we're making a movie. Mm-hmm. This is pretty cool. And so that's when it really struck a couple of us that this was going to be a lot of fun, because there were so many people in the whorehouse and it was so busy in every aspect. It was pretty cool.
And that was right away, too.
That was on like the third day.
Yeah.
Well, and the makeup was so extraordinary in that film.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And how long did it take to do? I mean, I know for the different characters, it would take different times.
Yeah, all the characters had different makeup times, but generally they only allow you maybe 2 to 3 hours to get everyone ready, because they want to get the shot off and all that sort of thing. So we come in really early, like, you know, we had 4 o'clock call times, and we would start the makeup process. And all the makeup was researched to be period correct, and the carmine was sourced out and found and used to give the red on the cheeks and all that sort of thing. So everything was as period correct as we could make it at that point, and that was pretty big day for all of us, and we were all pretty happy when we saw it all come together. Yeah,
and it turned out really well too. Yeah.
The interior of the whorehouse was spectacular. I mean, you don't see it for long enough in the movie, but the interior of the whorehouse was really spectacular. I mean, you walk in and there's sawdust on the floors and it smells like dead horses. And it was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is going to be really cool. This is going to be really great, until we're 5 days in and we're still standing in it. It's not going to be fun. But it was really cool. I think the most difficult day for the makeup department as a whole was when we were doing all the Canyon de Chelly stuff. Because we were fighting elements. We're in the desert. We're down a canyon. We've got no radio control with anybody, because it's a 30 or 40-minute drive down the canyon to get to the secondary base camp.
Where is it?
In Canyon de Chelly.
Canyon de Chelly is in Arizona, and it's on the Navajo Nation. Reservation. And the community wasn't allowed to go in there. Only the Navajo, and for some reason Disney,
I don't know how,
did their magic, and it was the most ideal location you could have for that ambush.
Yes.
Because the cliff walls were hundreds of feet high, and it's this real narrow area. It was perfect for that scene, and the only way you could get down there was by these huge military troop trucks, because you went down the river. They didn't have any roads or anything to get there, so we had to take those. So everybody's thumping all their equipment, all these trucks, and you're going down miles on this river, take a left at the canal, and now you're in, and now you're trucking everything from that campsite, like you said.
Yeah, to the location, and there's a couple of gators, but mostly you're schlepping your stuff.
Yeah.
And you're walking a mile down the canyon.
Yeah, just to get to your spot.
And I just want you all to know my telephone worked and nobody else's did.
Gore had a rule: if the telephone worked, then we needed to move.
Okay.
Yep.
So when something went wrong and they were like, whose phone works? I went, mine works. So that worked. But for us it was difficult because we had all the rangers, which is like 5 or 6 people. And then we had all the Cavendish gang. I think there was 8 or 9 of them in total. And then we had their stunt doubles at the same time. And they would stagger their calls to get them in. We couldn't have extra help because it was a sensitive area, so we didn't have any extra or additional help. We just had the 5 of us in the main makeup trailer. And when the main cast were ready, 3 of them went with the main cast, so that left 2 of us to do 20 people. And dirt's not easy. It doesn't just throw itself on. And so it's time consuming. So I started doing, I think, ranges at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I finished my last makeup at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I had to go to set with them. So it was consistently the longest and the hardest days, and the elements were particularly bad. But, at the end of the night, we were all like, oh, well, that was fun. And that went on for about a week.
And that's where they shot all the grave sites, right?
Yeah.
And the horse that did the hat and dropped the hat, and that whole sequence.
That sequence was there.
And that horse is incredible, wasn't it?
The horse was great.
That was fun to watch. That really was. But that was a beautiful location, but very, very hard to work in.
Logistically difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we had second unit running at the same time. So, half the people were with main unit, half the people were at second unit. So you're constantly splitting your team up and having to go wherever. Like in my case, I go where I'm told because I'm not in charge. So I was going from main unit to second unit all the time. And, like bouncing around with whoever happens to be doing whatever. So it was busy. A lot, yeah. Your turn.
I guess giving a little bit of backstory, I guess. We'll start there. You guys have to understand that we were on this show, or these guys were on this show for 150 days. So, the total shoot was about 7 or 8 months.
I think it was
9 months?
9 or 10.
9 months or 10 months. It wasn't much further past the 6-month mark where they hit 1 million man-hours. So, you have so much that's going on this set. So logistically, from the production side of things, it's just amazing that every day pulled off. On any set, I'm going to say that, just because it's just controlled chaos, but it's just almost an artwork, how everything just comes together and everything flows seamlessly with people focusing and doing their jobs, especially with split units and everything else. And we were doing a lot of that. We had helicopters flying all over the place. While we were shooting main unit at the same time, we were off in locations where it took a mile to walk to the location. So overall, there was a lot of challenges. Plus, on top of that, we were chasing the heat. I think when we were in Moab, it was 112 average. So, you factor in all these elements, and you're presenting yourself right off the bat with a great challenge. But I think for me, the best day probably was I had come in for 2 weeks to help out a buddy of mine, Scott Cochet, running first team during all of the climax sequences in Albuquerque. And then I left to go to Cannes, and then I rejoined the crew because Scott decided that he was going to go do some AD work in New York and leave the show. So I came in and replaced him. So that first day when I had to meet Johnny, because I was dealing directly with first team throughout the entire show, the preliminary background that I got on it is that he does not like change too much, and he really was fighting to see what he could do to get Scott to stay. So I was feeling like I'm coming in an uphill battle. So that first day where they bring me into the trailer area and start introducing me to all of Johnny's people and introducing me to him, I think that was probably the best day, because there was a sigh of relief when he wasn't just completely like, "You're not Scott." The most challenging day, I would probably say, would be when we were in Moab. It was Comic-Con, and one of the guys that was running base camp had gone off to Comic-Con. And it was supposed to be a very, very slow couple days. And I was running base camp, getting all the main talent through hair and makeup and wardrobe and getting them on set. And the whole schedule flopped. And we had every single actor that was in town that was on those days, plus all the stunt guys that had to go through the same makeup trailers and everything else. So being down a man was extremely, extremely challenging. But at the same time, it could also flop to be one of the best days just because it was very rewarding at the end of it. I mean, you're running, because I'm running from trailer to trailer to trailer to trailer, trying to make sure that hair and makeup is going to set when the actors are traveling to set and everything else. But yeah, there was just a great sigh of relief at the end of those couple of days.
So every day you get a call sheet, and it gives a breakdown of everything you have to do and what each department's doing and what we're doing that day. And about, I'd say maybe a couple weeks into it, we just ended up calling it the lie sheet, because nothing on there went in order, ever. So that just made Andrew's job incredibly difficult, because you never, what are we doing next? I don't know, So you followed him around because he had the radio, and he'd go, okay, this is what we're doing next. Okay, so.
And then he'd stick his head in the makeup trailer and he'd go, okay, the Rangers are coming in. And then 5 minutes later he'd go, okay, cancel that, we're bringing in Cavendish. Yeah. And then he'd come back and go, no, cancel that, we're bringing in the Rangers and the doubles. At which point we're kind of like, could you pick one?
Yeah. And Andrew was a liar too, but not by fault.
That's because you guys weren't on walkie, so you weren't hearing what I was hearing the whole time too.
Absolutely.
It got to the point where they were not quite sure what they were going to be able to shoot because of the weather was so bad and the elements were so bad that we just got everybody ready all the time.
It's very much a process of being on your toes the whole time and being flexible and adjusting to how it's changing on set, especially being in base camp, just because when Todd's getting ready, I mean, he goes through the whole process just like Tonto did every single day. 2.5 hours of makeup, getting it put on, getting it taken off, everything else. So he's in early doing pre-calls. Ann-Maree is in the trailers doing up all the makeup with Joel and Mike. And with that, we have no idea what's going on set. So we're just going off of whatever we're hearing back from set. And on the flip side, set has no idea what we're doing back in base camp. So it's keeping those lines of communications open and making sure that the first AD knows exactly what's happening back there, and knowing, all right, we have these actors that are traveling, these actors are walking, so that we can keep making that forward momentum. I mean, we were shooting only half a page a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're shooting all those action sequences that have all the complexities, it is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would come in early because my makeup and costume and everything took about 4 hours total, or 3.5 hours, the whole process of it. And it was prosthetic pieces that they put on my face, forehead, cheeks, nose, chin, and then they would spray my whole body dark, and then they would put the paint on it. And then the tattoos. Now, Johnny has, his body's full of tattoos, so some of them, they were just like, we'll just use them, And he has a big skeleton tattoo on his back and one on his chest and a Z on his hand. So they would put those on me. And then after that whole process, then I'd go to hair, and that was another 20 minutes or a half hour to get the hair on. Because of the crow, they would put they came up with a device where they would put this plastic cap on my head, and there was 2 screws that stuck through the wig. Then they'd put the wig on, these 2 screws would stick through, and then they would screw it onto the bird, onto the head. And so that whole process took time, and so every morning I'd come in before anybody else would except Andrew. Andrew was always the first one there. Yeah. And then I was always the last one to leave because I had to take it all off. And that was about an hour process. I'd clean my whole body, and take the bird off and all that. And Andrew was always the last one I saw when I left. So
let's not forget Kevin Roy in that too.
That's right, that's right.
Kevin Roy was the AD that was running base camp too.
But yeah, so Andrew was, I always feel sorry for him because he's probably the least paid, but works the most hours, right? But works hard, I mean, without him, you don't know what's going on. And like I said, he's got the radio and he's directing us, so he's got a very important job. So it was nice to have him
hearing
there.
you guys talk, it's interesting because you had the job of coordinating such a complex set that was going on, and makeup, which was such a huge character in the film, and then of course the stunts, which was another extraordinary piece. And so I want to get into more details about the stunts if you can, because I know everybody who's seen the movie, it was just thrilling and extraordinary, and I don't know how you did it. So whatever you can share, I think would be really interesting.
For the record, Johnny does all his own stunts, okay? Now, Tonto, on the other hand, sometimes he has 2 guys. So, a lot of times we shoot first unit and second unit. So we're shooting at the same time 2 different units. So you can't be 2 places at one time. So when Johnny's doing something, then the other Tonto is doing something too. So, and like I'd mentioned earlier, when I was asked to come on this project, I told Tommy Harper, who was the stunt coordinator, I said, I don't ride horses, I'm just a trail rider. And he said, no, we got a guy that will do all the horse stuff, but you'll do everything that hurts. And I said, okay, I accept. So it was a fun challenge because this is the first time I've really worked with trains, the whole element of trains. And now, you're running from car to car, and you're underneath the train, riding along. And the other guys that Tommy Harper brought in to do stunt work, the horse guys, the cowboys were amazing. I mean, they're galloping along this train, and animals don't like that, but they trained them, and we rehearsed it, and they were jumping from the horse to the train, and from the train to the horses. I mean, they did some incredible stuff. And without Tommy Harper bringing in the right people, the right stunt riggers, those guys are the ones that we don't see it on camera, but we have cables on us, and we're jumping off the train into the ground, but it looks like we did it, but it's assisting us, so we don't auger in and we can do it again, And so without him bringing in those guys to make us all safe. And then he's got it set up so he can have the actors do it and be safe, because that's so important. People don't want to see my face. They want to see Johnny's face, and they want to be able to know Johnny did that, right? And he did, because Tommy made it possible for him to do, the stunts on there. And so it was, Tommy's a mentor of mine, and he's a wonderful human being and a fantastic coordinator. So it was really a fun project to work with,
Well, and the one thing that Gore is huge on as well is the realism of it. I mean, those were real trains. Those were real train tracks that they were on. I mean, the stunt guys, they were faced with an uphill battle right from square one too, just because Gore wants to see it for real. If it's going to be seen on camera, he wants to see them do it.
He wants it real, and and we were doing this thing. We were, the train was moving. It's going 50 miles per hour. We're running from train to train, car to car, and we're like, okay, we dialed it in, and then he goes, now you're going to be handcuffed. You're like, okay, chained to the Lone Ranger, So now it's a whole new ball game, So cameras roll and action, and I take off running, and I'm running from car to car, and we yell cut, and he gets down and he goes, "You're not running like Tonto." And I go, I don't know how Tonto runs, you know? Like, what do you mean? He goes, "You're running like a football player." And I go, "Yeah, it's called survival mode. I mean, this thing's going 50 miles per hour. You got the wind blowing. You got this bird on your head. You're like, dude, I'm doing what I can not to fall off, you know? And I'm chained. I mean, I got handcuffs on and the whole ordeal." So he's so strict on his details. We got Johnny out of the trailer, and he said, "Johnny, can you run for Todd? He needs to study you running." And so Johnny's like, "All right," you know. So he runs, you know, and he's like, "This is how Tonto runs." And I go, "Okay, butt cheeks tight, shoulders back, and I'm running," you know. So that is Gore. You're absolutely right. You know, he is to the detail, you know. So that was always fun.
Well, and hair and makeup always had fun with all the train work too, because I'm assuming most of everybody's seen the movie here, and you know, for all of the stuff that they're on top of the train and everything else, they're still having to keep continuity. So I mean,
we're underneath, sitting on the floor, getting yelled at, "Get out of the shot! Get out of the shot! Get out of the shot!" So in the end, I was probably 70% of the time lying on the floor of the train, so they could not catch me in the shot. With my cohorts, and one of them's like 6 foot something. It wasn't easy.
You got used to spooning on there, right?
Let's not talk about that.
And climbing up and down those ladders too.
Yeah, the ladders weren't fun. Yeah. I got smart in the end. I was like, "Can the stunt guy come down?" Because it's just going to be easier than you waiting for me to go up and then come back down. Because he's really good at it and I'm not. And so eventually they were like, "Yeah, that's just going to be faster." Yeah.
But you did mention the dirt, and I have to say, when I was watching the movie, I was like, wow, those are dirty guys, and it was so realistic, and everything was like really fit into the time period. And I want to talk about that, and I don't know, maybe all three of you can also get into a little bit about, you mentioned it, but Tonto's costume is so fascinating, you know, kind of maybe some of the story dynamic behind that, and what, if there was anything that you guys know about that. But first, more on how you were able to deal, I mean, just the, you know, the blood and the dirt and, like you said, continuity and action and, wow.
Dirt's not easy. I mean, people think, oh, it's a bit of dirt, you just throw a bit of dirt on it, it'll be fine. No, that's not how it works. You have to put the dirt on in such a way that it's actually going to stay. So that you don't have to keep constantly touching it up. And then you want it to match from shot to shot, because you can't have, you know, dirt over here and then dirt over here and it not being there. So you have to constantly match the dirt. So there's a lot of photographs taken, and there were a lot of different techniques used in making the dirt, and then the sweat, and then making the sweat run through the dirt so that the dirt ran down and all that sort of thing. And it wasn't a quick process. It was multiple processes with multiple products, basically. So it wasn't whenever it was a dirt day, it was never going to be fast.
And in Albuquerque, it didn't work with you. In Albuquerque, there's a bunch of dust storms that you'll see them coming, so you know what's coming for you, but there's nothing you can do except literally put on your goggles, put on your face mask, and just ride it out, and then know that you're going to have to go and touch them up again.
Yeah, and basically when the sandstorms would come through, it would sandblast everything you've done off. And then you'd have to do it again. But you've got 5 minutes because camera's ready. And it's like, oh, great.
Yeah, one day after one of the sandstorms, the guys are all laughing at me. Well, what's so funny? I was red because of all the sand that had gotten onto my makeup, and then it was ruined. So, there you go, back into doing a two-hour process of changing it all back. So anytime that sandstorm came by, they'd put a towel over my head and told me to run, so.
I think we're still all pulling dirt out of our clothes that we had there.
I threw all my clothes out. I actually had to throw them all out because that red dirt doesn't come out of anything. I threw it all away.
So also in the film, there were this constant, there was drama and really good story and action sequences, and then this comedy. Were there ever times on set where you guys just wanted to laugh?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was a few times where I got stink-eye because I started laughing before cut, and they're just all like, all right, let's do it again. But Johnny and Army really had some good chemistry, and they are very funny human beings, and it was really fun to watch them, because a lot of that is improvising, you know, because they're so good at what they do. So it was very tough to keep a straight face, you know, and not laugh at those two.
We'd walk away.
Yeah.
We'd just walk away. We'd just go, I got to go.
And I don't think it was ever with camera rolling, but yeah, those two guys are definitely characters. And I mean, they have a great sense of humor. Army liked to play a game, though. Whenever I needed him on set, he decided that it was a good idea to buy a BMX, a little motorbike. Yeah, that's not fun for me. It's great for him. He has a great time and lets off steam. However, whenever I call him to set, then he decided that it was time to go ahead and take off. You chase him, then it becomes a game. So
yeah, one day we saw Army way out in the desert. Wah, wah, wah. And we looked. Did he wreck? No?
You ran out of gas.
Oh, he ran out of gas. Should we help him?
No.
Nope. He's in his suit, too, you know? And
Yeah.
I go, yeah, that'll teach him, right?
And he had to get the motorcycle because he was banned from driving the golf carts. I made the mistake of driving in the golf cart with Army once. Just once. And ever since then, they were like, oh, well, Army's going, I don't ride with the hammer. I thought I was going to die.
Well, and then as a gift, the stunt department, Tommy, decided to have the BMX bike as well, just completely retrofitted out. So he had it all customized, Lone Ranger and everything else, and it was
cool.
kind of his silver off camera.
Yeah, that was fun.
Very cool. Well, so everybody who's seen the movie obviously knows that the mask is a big deal in the storyline. So we just had to know, did you guys ever get to try on the mask? Did you?
I can neither confirm nor deny that may or may not have happened. And that there is photographic evidence.
No, I never did.
I had a love-hate relationship with the bird and the mask because I was always somehow the one responsible for making sure that it was on set with the actor. And with it being this similar mask that was going on, the same person that was putting on the mask to the stunt doubles and the main talent, it didn't always coordinate that way. So sometimes it was a challenge, and the mask wasn't always my friend.
Yeah, I found out real quick. We were doing this really gnarly stunt where in the movie, the train derails. So what they did was they had the Lone Ranger double and myself on top of the train, and they brought out two huge cranes, about 300 yards apart, and they put a big high line on it. And on the high line was a traveler. So what the scene is Tonto and the Lone Ranger get thrown off the train, and they tumble head over heels all the way down until they hit the train car. So we were sitting probably about 15 feet off the ground. They yell action. The trolley takes off. We go flying. We drop about 15 feet into the ground, and I just auger in. Bam! I hit so hard that when I came around, my hair and my bird flew off my head, and everybody starts screaming. You know, they thought my head came off. So the trolley keeps going. Jeremy, the Lone Ranger stunt double, Jeremy and I are head over heels all the way down, and we crash into that train car that's at the end of the run. It's probably a good 50-yard run that we did, just head over heels. And I hear cut, and I'm seeing three, and I'm looking at Jeremy, and he's looking at me, and there's three of him, and I see everybody coming running over, and I see hair and makeup and Ann-Maree running towards us, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be fine, guys, you know. And no kidding, they all run right past us. I think Ann-Maree's makeup bag hit me right in the head, and they run over to that bird, and they're like, oh my gosh, is the bird okay, you know? Can we save it? Can we use it for another take, you know?
We only had two birds.
Yeah. So you found out right away who was more important, the bird that Andrew was in charge of, or you. So that was, that was about it.
Well, and that's just it, is the mask was specifically molded, and I mean, these are handcrafted items that, you know, they were expensive. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love you, Todd.
So was it true? Did it hurt? You got threatened that you were going to get the painful part?
It's feel-good pain, you know. It's something I signed up for and something I desire and love to do. So it's always good pain, you know. So it's fun. It's fun to be able to do something that, you know, most people are like, I'm not doing that, and I'm like, I'll do it, you know. That's the way I kind of grew up. I'll do it, you know. So.
And they never admit they're hurt, ever. You all right? Yep, good, fine. And they hobble off and you're like, I don't think he's okay.
Sometimes they're still lying on their backs, just...
Yeah, I'm
just
fine,
give me
I'll
a
get up in a
moment.
minute.
Yeah, let me find
the
my
bird
bird.
okay?
Yeah, go find the bird.
So I want to give some time for everybody to ask questions, but before we get into that, I guess the last question that I wanted to ask was, tell us about the bunnies.
I love the bunnies.
Tell us about them on set.
It's nature out of balance. Yeah. That was their whole purpose, is nature out of balance. Bunnies are creepy.
Yeah.
Silver's the comedy there.
Yeah.
The bunnies are the creepy. Nature's out of balance.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you guys so much. This has been so entertaining. So the way we're going to do the... Thank you. The questions, just come on up to the mic here. You can line up and just ask any questions that you have. And if you don't, then we can keep... Yay.
Yes, I'll start it. My question is, how involved were you with the wardrobe department in the whole...
Wardrobe is a completely different department, although we do work together in everything. The wardrobe designer would come to us and say, well, this is the costume and this is what we're thinking, particularly when we're putting together, say, like the Cavendish gang. Mm-hmm. This is what I want them to wear. What do you think? Kind of like, you know, what are you thinking? And then there's a bit of a creative process, usually between the department head and the wardrobe designer, and they come together and decide how that's going to work.
And like your department, it really has to be part of the period piece.
Yeah.
You know.
And we work, you know, when you work in a good team, and I've done a lot of movies with these people, and it's always the same group of people. We all work together and we all help each other. So I think the wardrobe and the makeup department worked very closely together on this one.
Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions?
And I think what you'll find too, once you are involved with a production, it's so important, all the departments. I mean, all the departments get together and really make... I can't do a stunt if I don't have the right hairstyle on, my makeup, my costume, the car that I'm driving, cameras are rolling. I mean, I think the worst day of my life was the day I did this really gnarly stunt, and they're all looking at me, and I'm like, what? I nailed it. And they're like, we weren't rolling cameras, you know? We were just like, what? You know, you're all amped up. I'm going, you know, and they're like, okay, that's cool, but, you know, it's got to be on film, you know. So.
And that's just, I mean, just elaborating or just reinforcing, I guess, is the teams on this were just phenomenal. I mean, everybody in production, every single PA that was on set, which there was several Full Sail graduates that were out there on set as well. I mean, I think each of us can probably not stop saying good things about just our respective departments, just because there was such a solid team that was happening there, and everybody needs to know what their part is, and everybody pulled off that part. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been making our days.
And the elements made it so tricky that, you know, when the sandstorms did come in and the rainstorms and all that, people were grabbing everybody's gear just to help each other out. It was so tight. Everybody was so tight on this production, and it was really sad to hear rap, because you had become a family, you know. Nowadays, production's really a traveling circus. I mean, we can go anywhere we want and put up a tent, and you have a lunchroom, you have sleeping quarters, you have your offices, you have everything you need to do anywhere you want, and at the end, you feel like a gypsy because everybody's saying goodbye because they're all going to travel somewhere else and set up camp, you know.
And we actually had T-shirts made for the makeup department that says, you know, Joel Harlow's traveling carnival.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so we were 9 months, 5 different states we shot in, 19 different company moves. That's huge. 19 company moves within those 5 states. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
We were moving every couple days to another location just as a mini company move, yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello. I'm very interested in makeup. I wanted to know of your experience. What's the behavior? I mean, you get really close, in a very close and intimate distance with the actors, and you're working with A-list actors and actresses. What's their behavior with you? Like, for example, Johnny Depp and all these people. What's their behavior to you, and what's the behavior you adopt when you're like working on them?
It's kind of very intuitive. You kind of like go with the feel of how it is with the actor. The actors will let you know what they like and what they don't like. And you just kind of have to like feel it out and make it happen. And you have to trust your instincts. A lot of it is really about intuition. And, you know, if they don't like something, they'll let you know. But usually when you start with an actor that you don't know, you kind of ask, well, is there anything that you particularly like? Is there any product that you like? Is there stuff that you don't like? That sort of thing. And you kind of build a rapport that way.
Okay.
And then it just develops very, very, very organically.
What I'll say about Ann-Maree and what's great about the makeup department in general is that they're kind of the first people that the actors see. And a lot of times, that's who's getting them into character. I mean, in a way. I mean, they're the ones that are there to lend the sympathetic ear, that are there to just kind of be the moral support, I guess, for a lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they're getting their sides then, and they're going over their lines, and you know. So you're right. You're help building their character right there.
I had one character whose actual character was kind of like that beat down kind of general snivelly suck up kind of to everybody to get along kind of person. And our process was we would put the hair pieces on and he would start to come together and then he would hit on me. And I would knock him back every single time, and that would go on for about 5 minutes until he was good. Until he was like, yeah, now I feel really beat down and like a complete loser. I went, okay, have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Gary. I'm interested in AD work, and I know you elaborated a little bit on sort of what happened during production, but before you were brought in and met Johnny and his whole crew, how did you build that relationship with them, and what was like a start, like how did your day start? Because I know you were there before the production crew, and you were there after they left. So how did you progress from one day to the next?
I guess to touch on the very first question, you know, coming in, I was coming in blind. What was very much in my favor was that I have a lot of very supportive people that were already on the movie that, you know, made people aware that I was coming on board, and, you know, that was extremely a huge help, because it wasn't that I was coming in completely blind. People knew that I was coming, and that had worked with me before as well. And the days, basically, for me, would start out helping out, making sure that talent started getting through hair and makeup, and making sure hair and makeup were there and knew kind of the process of the shots that we were going to be shooting, who was the priority and everything else, because they usually, right from the very 18 minutes after their call time.
I had to bring up the 18 minutes.
18 minutes from their call time, I have people in the trailer, and I've got a line of people, whether it's stunt doubles, actors, principals, I need to know who's going to be the priority. Right. And me and Kevin kind of took the lead on that stuff. Well, I went to make sure that talent had breakfast. You know, I was making sure that the coffee order was right, because it has to be a certain way. Ruth has her tea. Yes. She's an English actress, and Tom Wilkinson, making sure that he had all of everything correct as well. You know, Johnny has his whole team, so Johnny's self-sufficient. I would get a text from his assistant if there was stuff that they needed, like he'll have coffee in his trailer and things like that. So making sure that everything is prepped for when the actors are arriving, making sure that there is sides that are in all of the trailers for each of the actors, as well as all the producers, making sure that the first AD has them, distributing call sheets first thing in the morning as well, and papering all the trailers with the call sheets, making sure that they have all that information so that they know what to lie ahead. Like Todd was saying, there's things that were changing hours and hours after we had wrapped. So there were some days where we had blue call sheets, some days where we even went to a pink call sheet. So that's 2 changes entirely of the schedule that were amended. So it's relaying that information and making sure they understand what it is that we're attempting to do for that day. Then I would go ahead and double check the sides before I distributed sides and make sure that they were on the most current version of the script, because in the filmmaking process, the writer was on set the whole time.
Yeah.
Thomas Haith was there the whole time, and he was continually doing updates too, and the studio still has to approve those updates. So they're usually a couple days ahead of time, but it's not always matching up to what the script supervisor sides are, and that's ultimately, we're just double checking to make sure that it's the most current version that's getting distributed so that the information is still completely accurate. From there, then it would just be a matter of popping my head into the trailer and telling Ann-Maree and her crew if they were to get it. It was always a fight too. Every evening was always a fight as to who got which talent first. Was it going to be hair or was it going to be makeup? And both departments want them first.
That's going to be tough.
And so Kevin Roy is an amazing negotiator when it comes to that. He's the one that's scheduling out what all their call times are, the actors' call times, and both of us are texting them at the end of the day. Once they're called to set by Simon, who's the first AD, fantastic first AD, Australian as well.
Yeah.
Well, now, originally from London, now in Australia. And it's, I don't know how he accomplishes the things that he accomplishes, because I mean, the man did Lord of the Rings, he did Australia, he's worked on some of the Transformers. He was able to work with Mr. Bay.
His mind doesn't work in a linear fashion.
It doesn't.
Ever.
And it can't. There isn't such a thing as a linear fashion. Once he called actors to set, then it was a matter of inviting hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And at that point, they had to be done with all the actors that were needed coming up and knowing exactly who was staying behind to keep on making up the actors that were necessary for later on that were already called in, because a lot of the makeup processes were between 2 and 3 hours. So then I'd accompany the actors to set and then just take care of them on set.
My favourite moment is when he hands out the white call sheet and then says, "Don't worry, there'll be a blue one when you get back from breakfast." And I would be like, "Seriously?" He said, "Keep it up, there'll be a pink one."
Nice.
And just to elaborate a little bit on the 18 minutes, because you guys know that this is all union rule. And there's just one day where Ann-Maree just was not having it. She was having breakfast, and according to IATSE union rules, makeup artists...
I have an 18-minute setup time that I can use however I wish to use it, and there'd been like probably 7 or 8 days where they've gone, "Oh, well, so-and-so's here, can you start him early, can you start him early, and can you start him early?" And this particular day, I was pissy. I wanted my breakfast, and, you know...
She made us wait 3 minutes.
6 minutes. The set PA came out and he was like, "So-and-so's in the trailer." And I went, "I have 6 minutes." And he was like, "What?" Said, "I have 6 minutes. I've still got 6 minutes of my 18 minutes. And he tried to argue with me, and I finally said, and this was really mean, "If you continue to talk to me, I will start my 18 minutes over and you will wait the 18 minutes all over again." And he would go to speak something and I would go away. And my boss was sitting across the table and he's laughing at me. He's going, "Wow, man, you're such a bitch." I went, "I'm hungry." And so he goes out and he sends Andrew in. Because I know Andrew and I've worked with Andrew before. So he sends Andrew in and Andrew tells him, "It's not going to work." So he comes in and he talks to me about it, and I raise an eyebrow and I go, 3 minutes. And he goes back and walks past him and says, "She's still got 3 minutes."
And what was great was just because this was when I was first in Albuquerque with you guys. This is when we were shooting the huge climax sequences, you know, all the stuff where the stage is falling and the 50 stallions are stampeding through set, and we have every actor under the sun that's in this scene. So, I mean, we were already getting heat before the... I mean, there was times where we'd get actors called to set an hour before their set call, and it was like, all right, hair and makeup, sorry, let's speed it up. But with that, it was just a matter of, I think everybody was kind of on edge, and we were already getting set calls for some of these people just because there is so much involved with these scenes and these shots, and you know, there's just a lot to go over, and making sure that the safety was there too. I mean, with the riggers and everything else, because of all the stunts that were involved in that.
Great.
And so now 18 minutes is a running joke with everybody.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you very much, guys.
Hopefully that answered your question.
It does.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Latoya. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it. I actually had a couple of questions, but I see I have more people behind me now, so I'll pick one. I said, did you guys work with, get to actually work hand in hand with Johnny Depp, and what was it like working with him on film? Another one of my questions. You can pick whichever one you want. Did you think this movie would be big? And I remember her saying something about she had like 5 minutes because the wind was blowing. Like, what did you do in that situation? I want to know what you did for the makeup, since you only had a couple of minutes to make
Oh, and
it,
I had
right?
5 minutes?
Right, and then my last one, you can pick whichever one. You don't have to answer all of them.
I'll do that
How do you think you would have felt if you had the opportunity to play the part that you played, but you like to do the things that you had to do for makeup or hair or stunts, but you turned it down? Like, what do you think you would have done if this movie got big and you turned it down?
Oh, I'd crawl up into fetal position and rock backwards and forwards in the corner and sob like a 4-year-old going, I'm an idiot, I'm an idiot, I'm an idiot. But the 5-minute question, what actually happened was Scott Cochet was standing next to me. I couldn't see any other makeup people anywhere within shouting distance. And I was like, Cochet, get over here now. So he came running. He stood there. He held everything that I needed. And he became my makeup assistant for 5 minutes. And I worked furiously. And then they would do a take. And then I would go back in and work again. And they would do another take. And I would go back in and work again. And I was never completely satisfied with it. And I was like, oh, God, I can't believe that just happened. And I saw it on the film. It looks perfect.
Awesome.
It's like you just, when that situation comes, there comes a point where you just have to let it go. And so that's what you do.
Well, obviously, I had a chance to work side by side with Johnny, you know, for 9 months. And he is one incredible human being. He really is.
Yes, he is.
He's so eccentric in such a wonderful, neat way. I mean, he's just got an aura around him that you're just like, this guy is cool, you know? I mean, he's so polite. He's so respectful to all the crew members,
Yeah,
every single
everybody.
one of them. He thanks them. He gets to know people's families, their wives, their kids, and asks about them. And he's really an amazing person to be around. You just want to be better, you know? You just want to be... he makes you want to have fun and really enjoy what you're doing, because he really enjoys what he's doing, you know, and he oozes that out. And very complimentary. I mean, anything that anybody does, he really pays attention to what each crew member's doing, and if it's something above and beyond, he'll make an effort and tell you, you know, how thankful and how great that was, and how appreciative he really is. And so it was nice to meet him as an actor and as a stunt guy too. I never heard him complain one time, and there were some hellacious environments that we were into, and he never complained one time. And he's just a really, really good person, and he loves his kids to death. And so it was fun to talk kids, because we have kids about the same age, and just share stories that way. And so yeah, if Johnny Depp, he's cool. He's cool. There's nothing about it.
And I think that goes for a lot of, I mean, Jerry Bruckheimer as well. I think a lot of the most successful people have just not lost that sense of self. They're just grounded. They know who they are. They're not trying to be anybody that they're not.
So did you guys all, last question, did you guys all want to do like hair and makeup stunts like when you first started out? Because I know I get confused sometimes.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I want to do this and that. Like, but coming up, did you change your minds like after you?
I always wanted to do makeup, and that's what I set out to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
My question's for Todd. Was there ever, it could be in this movie or any other movie that you've done, that you're actually kind of like legitimately scared or freaked out to do one of your stunts, or if anything actually didn't go the way that it was supposed to go?
There has been stunts in my career that didn't go as planned, but being scared is not an option. I think when people go, "Were you scared?" Or I go, "No, I don't have anxiety. I've never felt anxiety." I know people sometimes like stand on top of a building and look over and get scared, and I've never felt anxiety. I get adrenaline rushes, like, man, we're gonna do this, but there are stunts that I'm not qualified to do, like the horse thing. I'll get on a horse and it'll throw me off. I know it, but there are going to be guys that are specifically for that. So you're never really put in a position where a good stunt coordinator is not going to put a stunt person in a position where he knows he can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And what you have to understand too is, while we're shooting, a lot of these stunts are being rehearsed days and weeks out. At the beginning of the movie, they did a whole cowboy camp, just making sure that Army was on the same page, Ruth and everybody else were prepared and trained. And then, as we're shooting, like the stuff that was at the mountain in New Mexico, there's a bunch of horses and they were getting attacked, and there was a bunch of riders falling off the horses and everything else, and that was rehearsed for weeks leading up to that. So while we're shooting, they're already at that location, rehearsing at the location so that it's in the environment that they're doing it in.
Yeah, and we did some stuff, especially on the Lone Ranger, things that really hadn't been done before, like riding underneath the train and moving along. Well, it's going 50 miles per hour, and how can you get a stunt guy to crawl underneath it or stay underneath it and not be killed? So everything we do is, we're not daredevils. We are calculated stunt riskers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So everything, there is a danger obviously to the stuff we do, but it's calculated. So.
And Gore always wanted the trains to move faster.
Yes.
Faster. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Hi, Tanner kind of took my question, whatever. But I'm going to ask this question real quick. Like, okay, because you kind of already explained it, but like you were saying, like you were on a real train and like on the real rails and stuff. How do you, as like a stunt person, like do you just go with the flow, or do you like in terms of like anxiety? Because I know you say you don't really have it.
How do you prepare for it?
Yeah, how do you
right?
prepare for something like this?
I mean, you're on a train and they're like, okay, take off running, and you jump from car to car, and you're like, all right, cool, and then all of a sudden it's going 50 miles per hour and the wind's blowing. You're like, whoa, this is gnarly. So I think a lot of these jobs in the production company, it'll spit you out if you can't do it, right? If if you can't handle 1,000 different personalities, you're not going to do Andrew's job. If you get in a situation where you got to dig deep as a stunt person and not get that anxiety, then you're going to be okay in that deal. I mean, every single person in this room could do a stunt once. It's doing it again. You're telling your mind, going, that really hurt, and they want me to do it again, and I'm going to do it again, because I signed up for it, and for some sick reason, I want to do it again, So so a lot of things they'll just kind of snuff you out if you can't do it.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
We would usually put Tom Wilkinson on the train at that point and just kind of start making fun of Todd that he's getting schooled by Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. Thank you all for coming here.
Thank you.
All right. How did you guys get the phone call from Gore and Jerry?
Gore,
And he called you?
he did not.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he didn't?
It was Jerry?
Wasn't Jerry. We don't get the call from Gore and Jerry. I actually got a text message from Joel Harlow, who's the department head, who sent me a text message, and it was like, hey, you want to do the Lone Ranger? And I was like, is this a joke? Someone's messing with me here. And then it took me like half a day to get back with him because I was like, he's messing with me. You know, and then I sent him a text message back and I was like, sure, I'll do that. And then like further along, that was a long time before it actually got up and running. And then further along, he would call me and say, well, this is what we're going to do. Or Mike would call me and say, well, this is what's happening. Right up until the point was, okay, we need you there on this date. And then you would start the movie.
So our positions, we have a coordinator. We have a department head. So it's that department head's job to call his people in. So my call was from Tom Harper, the stunt coordinator, and then these guys would get their calls from their department heads. So Jerry and Gore, it was interesting though for my position. Johnny's stunt double was injured in rehearsals, so they needed to come up with a stunt double. So Tommy Harper, I get a phone call and he said, I need your headshot and resume immediately. And I said, okay. And he goes, I need a picture of you with your shirt off. And I go,
sure you do, Tommy.
What movie are we doing here? And he said, well, your character will be shirtless, and they want to see if your physique will match the actors. And you always get calls that they don't give you much detail, like, are you available? Yeah, okay, cool, click. Like,
That happens a lot.
So I was coming back from Atlanta. I was finishing some project up there coming down Atlanta. So I'm on 75, and he goes, you need to pull over right now and take a picture of yourself. And so I'm sitting in some truck stop taking it like this, and all the truckers are like, so,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I send it off, and that was on a Wednesday, and I don't hear anything, and I don't hear anything on Thursday, and I said, well, obviously, I didn't get it, And Friday morning, 9:06, I get this call, and he goes, hey, Gore and Johnny, love ya, you're in, and I was like, okay, and Johnny's like, yeah, I want to look like that, and so...
and we're like, does he have hair? He's just got to have hair.
Yeah. So Friday, I get the call. Monday, I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I literally was like, well, how long am I here for? And he's like, well, till the end. And I go, when's that? And he goes, oh, it's scheduled for 9 months. And I go, well, I have a week's worth of clothes in there, so I better...
do laundry.
Yeah, do some laundry. But, so my call was from the stunt coordinator.
And for me, I kept getting texts from Scott saying, what are you doing for the next couple of months? Like, well, just, we can work something. I'm still working over at the school, but we can work something out. And then Ann-Maree, pack your bags. It was a text message from Ann-Maree because Scott
came to me and he said, I don't understand why I can't get a straight answer out of Andrew Campbell. I went, I'll take care of it. I'm like, pack a bag.
And they were waiting until the climax scene happened because they had they knew that was when they were going to need an additional person. And I told Scott that I had 2 weeks of availability. I already had a plane ticket that was booked to go to Paris or go to France. So he gave me the call. I got out there. I think I got 48 hours of heads up, maybe, just to throw some things into a suitcase and fly to Albuquerque this first time. And then I did my 2 weeks. On the last day, I was saying goodbye to all the ADs and everything, and they were all looking at me like I had 3 heads and asking me where I'm going. Yeah.
That didn't go well.
Scott didn't relay the information that I was only there for 2 weeks and that I had to get out and catch a plane out of Orlando to go to Cannes Film Festival. So, needless to say, when they found out what I was doing, it was actually surprising because everybody was extremely supportive. And it was great. And then I flew back and worked at the school for another month and got another phone call saying, hey, how quickly can you get yourself to Moab, Utah? which if you've ever been to Moab from Orlando, you fly into Denver, and then there's this great airline called Great Lakes Airlines. You walk out onto the tarmac, and it looks like you have a private jet, because it's very tiny. You get inside of it, and there's one seat on each side of the aisle, and when you're checking in, they're actually asking your weight, because the heat has weight restrictions. Otherwise, I think we had maybe 6 people that were allowed on the flight with their bags. And the whole time is just bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. I told Ann-Maree, and I think she set up Bill Fichtner because he was not
Poor
happy
Bill.
after that flight going back to Denver.
Yes.
But needless to say, it was just all about networks, all about contacts, and eventually, I think we all kind of work with very similar people because it seems like the union jobs that are this caliber seem to utilize mostly the same people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. With all the detail and talent and time and effort and all of that put into this movie and it looking so great, why did it lose so much money and get such a bad reputation?
I actually think that that's premature to say that because it's still just opening all over the world. And, when the first Pirates came out, I worked on the first Pirates. Haters are going to hate. People want to hate. They didn't like that one too, and it took off. And I don't know why that the critics have chosen to take the tack they've taken, but I haven't met anybody who hasn't liked the movie. Everybody loves it. I've seen it 3 times. I like it more and more every time I see it. So I think it's entertaining. I think it's great fun, and I think everyone should just go and see it. Make up your own minds.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
I liked it. Very, very creative, but the thing that kind of hits your brain, you're watching this incredible thing happening, and then stunt-wise, to be honest, a couple things happen in it, and I'm thinking, is this all CGI, or are they really doing this? And then it looks so real at one point, and the 2 things that I was like, it's almost like your brain is telling you one thing, and your eyes are seeing another, and you don't know what to believe, because I don't really believe a horse would run down the top of a train. I own horses, and that's too risky. And then the other thing was when you rolled and fell, okay, I believed it, and then all that other stuff fell down, and I thought, it's going to kill him. You know what I mean? And I thought, they wouldn't kill them, would they? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of expensive to kill the actors, So, but it was so close, I thought, they're going to kill him. I was a medic, so I'm like,
And
so
it was close on
how
set.
much is CGI and what is, because I almost think, I really am a fan of like the old movies. Like I watch them all the time, like even 50s and 60s. They could tell a story, and when you have actors like Depp who just grab you with their humor, I loved that. I mean, to me, that's worth it. You know what I mean? It's entertainment, and I loved it, But sometimes I think too much CGI kills it. I mean, if you look at the 50s and 60s, they told a story. They had no car crashes. Sometimes nobody died. There's one set, and you're crying. You know what I mean? They get me crying at the commercials, you know what I mean? They're just such a good storytelling thing. And they don't need to wreck, 4 Porsches to do it, you know what I mean? And there's no people flying around with angel wings or whatever the, little aliens are doing. You know what I mean? It's a good story. I love a good old-fashioned story. And this kind of did go back to that, But then what was with the horse running down the train? That was not real, right?
They actually trained the horse to run down the train.
Seriously?
Yep. That was the most amazing horse that I have ever seen. And the rider, his name was Lynn, was the most accomplished horseman I had ever met in my entire life. And they trained that horse to do all that.
And Bobby,
and the horse was standing in the tree.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and Bobby has some amazing training abilities.
Yeah.
Bobby Lovegren was
The
horse
horse
trainer, and I mean...
That's like amazing to know that. I couldn't even believe that one could actually do that, I've seen these Extreme Mustang. If you've ever seen those, there's a documentary on Bright House right now. Extreme Makeover, Mustang Makeover. They have the most incredible horse trainers I've ever seen, but I still, even seeing that, had no idea that that could actually happen.
You know, horses are really, really smart. I grew up on a horse farm. Horses are really, really smart. My sister has horses, she'll whistle and they'll come down to the fence line.
Oh, mine do too.
You know, you can train them to do, as long as they trust you, you can train a horse to do pretty much anything. And the horse trainer was that guy.
So was there any CGI or like, can you tell us, or was it all real in this movie? Because there was a lot of wild stuff going on.
Yeah.
I know that the horse was actually in the tree. That was correct. Because they put the horse in the tree.
Yeah.
And he just stood there. He was kind of like, okay.
There was a platform, but he was on the tree.
He was on the, they built the tree and they put him up on the tree and then they backed the platform out and the horse stood on the tree. And he was perfectly happy there.
And like they had him jump from the top of the building?
They train. I saw them training him to jump from the top of the building.
He did that?
They did train him to do that. I don't know whether he did that or not. I wasn't on set that day, but they were training him continually to jump.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Wow, well, you guys have just completely entertained us and given us so much amazing information and I think inspired us. And sincerely, I'm just very, very impressed. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone with your incredible work. Thank you for your hard work. It was just beautiful to see and it was really fun to watch and you guys did an amazing job. So, yay! Thank you.